Adazi-Nnukwu was about the first town around every other town in Igbo land that abolished OSU, and it stood till date. Today, it made Adazi-Nnukwu to be a town of academicians. We are not known for trade, we are known for academics. That's why you have so many professors in this town, Adazi-Nnukwu. Adazi-Nnukwu as a town is a town of Catholics, not dominantly Catholics, Catholics, because our grandfather, His Royal Majesty Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne, advised the town that we should remain in one umbrella so we won't get divided. That made Adazi-Nnukwu dominantly Catholics. That's why you see so many Catholic parishes in Adazi-Nnukwu. No Anglican church, no other church. So by then they waited until they made sure he had met with his girlfriend, and then they jumped into the compound. Then he had his father's sword. That sword was called Amambu. It's made of wood, but whatever he touches cuts into two. It doesn't have to strike. It doesn't have to use it hard. You don't have to strike it. Once it touches anything, the thing goes into two. The thing divides into two. And then Onwa Zombeno Beludu Kata's son has his own father's own. His own is once he is in the front of any group, no bullet, no weapon harms anybody behind him, but he will not shed blood. So they asked him to go and knock on the door, and he was the youngest among them, a very little boy. He went and knocked at his door. Then they call it Mbo. Mbo is door. He went and knocked at the Mbo, that is the door. And then, by the time they opened, the man woke up and got out, opened his door. He met a small boy. He was wondering if it was a human being or a spirit. So he held the boy, started shaking the boy, asking him who he was. But it was a plan, and the boy was going towards a particular direction as he was shaking him. So it made Okoludo to back where Ojiako hid himself. He hid himself in the thatch. That thatch thing they used to build the roof of mud house, where Okoludo packed it in his compound. So the boy backed that place. So Okoludo was busy asking the boy, who sent you? Where are you from? Because seeing him as a small boy, he didn't even know where to start. That was when Ojiako came out from that place, from behind, using his father's amambu, just like this, just touched it on the waist of Okoludo, and Okoludo split into two. From waist up, fell off. From waist down, fell the other side. And then Abo came out. Everybody took what he wanted. What Ojiako wanted was his head, because that was the promise he made to his father, that if that bullet he shot him, kills him, that he will bury him with his head, with Okoludo's head. So he went immediately, used the same amambu on his neck, and the head went off. He looked for a plantain leaf and covered it with it, and asked them that they should go. The woman came out. They used lump of salt, those local salt that they used to mold, forced it into her mouth, tied her mouth so she could not shout, because they didn't want to kill her. She wasn't their mission. It's just so she will not raise her land till they leave the territory of Akweze. And so they left. So by the time they got to between Neni and Adazi, within our boundary, he couldn't come in, because there's a tradition in Adazi. On Afode, we don't shed blood. You cannot shed blood. You can't shed blood. Being an Adazi-Nnukwu man in those days on Afode. And he had done it because that was on Afode. And it was that Afode they discovered that Okoludo's girlfriend used to come. So that was the day they could do what he wanted to do. Despite the fact that Adazi don't shed blood on Afode. He had no option. So what he did was, when they got to that boundary, he cannot enter Adazi. He climbed a tree there and asked Abo, who is equally from Adazi, to go to his father's palace and make the announcement that something happened, that he shed blood, that they should go and make announcement in Afo market and tell the women that are in the market, you should give this person should give you, so that it will mean that market has transacted, market has happened, and everybody should carry their luggages and go home. And that was exactly what happened. Everybody did that. People were asking, what happened? What happened? What happened? Nobody knew. So they just did that, and everybody carried their baskets. All the women carried their basket and left, and Afo was empty. It meant that Afo market has transacted for the day, and Afo is over. So the next thing is Nkwo. So that was why he did that, so that he can come in. And then when that happened towards evening, they went and told him, and then he came down from the tree with the head of Okoludo and came into his father's compound. Went to his father. His cabinet men were all surrounding, because it was still on that same Afo day that Ndinza Dazigiana. He went to him and looked at him. He was breathing in pain, about going. And then he called him. Nna, Nnam. He turned and looked at him. He told him, I promised you that if Okoludo's bullet would kill you, that I will bury you with Okoludo's head. But if you survive Okoludo's bullet, you will be taking your bath on top of Okoludo's head. This is it. He gave him the parcel he tied with a plantain leaf. He collected it, opened it. Behold, it was Okoludo's head. He gave it to the other Nze. He looked at it, it was Okoludo. They passed it round and they confirmed it was Okoludo. A man who hadn't gotten up for weeks struggled to get up that day. People tried to help him. The Nzes he said no, nobody should help him. He forced himself up and held his hand, raised his hand up, and called them Adazi. If he had ever offended anyone, let him take the share. Let him take his own share from this boy. But if he had done good for them, let them reward him by this boy. That was the day the world, heaven and earth, knew that something was going to happen about Ojiako. And so later he died. After that very day, the next Izu, that's the next Afo, Nzejiana, that Nze used to go, he left. He passed on and he was buried. And if you ask me what happened to Okoludo's head, your guess is as good as mine, what it was used for. So that was about Okoludo. And then Ezenne's transition to our ancestors. And that was how Ojiako emerged and started moving, until it got to a point when the colonial masters, by then he was like a mayor already in the town, not doing bad, but with so much powers. He already learned trade. He has businesses going for him. He trades on ammunitions like guns. He brings in, takes to the man that repairs. They will repair, sell some, and all that. And then he deals on hot drinks. He deals on ivory. He learned from his grandfather, his uncle at Anako, that he followed from Aguku to Anako. So he was doing series of business, and then people come from Bamili area to come for this rainmaking talent and all that. So as time goes on, the colonial masters needed to have warrant chiefs. And then they came in. Something happened. They asked, who is the oldest, highest title holder of the town? Those that held the authority, that in every community, there are people that hold the title of authority. And they said, it's his family. They said, okay, that means that from birth he is Nze. They said, yes. So that was one of the criteria. And then he had supporters. And then he was made a warrant chief. He became a warrant chief. He used his office judiciously to bring justice to different towns, different homes, different families. Not unlike some who used theirs to amass wealth or to intimidate people and all that. He never did that. Rather, he fought for the downtrodden. Then along the line, the colonial master they were watching him, and they discovered that in every dispensation of justice that he does, he does it judiciously. He doesn't do anything that looks like trying to intimidate or what they call destruction of justice. And so that was how, at a point, they made him the president of Agolo court. That court is the court you see as you are moving down, as you are, after what do we call this junction? What do we call this junction? As you are moving down Agolo Lake, you see the court on your left. That was the court. They call it Court Ojiako. So by 1907, he was made a warrant chief. By 1907. So by the time he was made a warrant chief, he became the warrant chief, and he used it well up till 1915. By 1915, they discovered that Ojiako is a just man, a just king. And then they made him the president of Agolo courts. So he became the president of Agolo courts, which comprises of this our entire area called Agolini. That was how he started doing it. And then, but even the white men, they were marveling. How do this man do this? He will be able to dispense justice from cases with cases from other different towns. Meanwhile, he cannot be from every town. His mother doesn't know, but cases come from different towns. But what he does is, when you bring a case, he makes adjournments, and then he sends people, trusted hands, to those towns to go and make inquiries for him. Then if it is a very serious case, he will go by himself. At times, he even disguises himself. Go into that town, make inquiries before the next sitting. So by the time he'll be holding that next sitting in the court, it will be as if he is from that town. It will be as if he was there when it happened. So that intelligence made the white men to marvel what nature of man he was. So that was him, and it happened like that till 1921, and he was made the paramount chief. And you know what the paramount chief means? Paramount chief means the chief of all chiefs. That was why you will not be surprised when you hear that his name is Ogbuefi, His Royal Majesty Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne. Eze ibie na ebuloche. Ogalanya ibie na ebuloche. Because he was given that honor by making him the paramount chief. And then, from that point, he became the chief of all chiefs. And that led him up to a point in his time, in his life. He decided that they will abolish OSU trade. They will abolish OSU in Adazinuku. He told them that everybody is born equal, that it's a time they should learn to love each other, and they should abolish that idea, that belief that this man is an outcast and this man is a freeborn. And so he abolished it in Adazi. Adazinuku was about the first town around every other town in Igbo land that abolished OSU, and it stood till date. As I speak to you, there's no town, there's no village or family, or any man or woman that will be pointed to you and say, this man or this boy or this woman is an OSU, or even was an OSU, because he abolished it and it stood. And so we don't have anything like OSU in others anymore. That was how he did that about OSU. And then in 1912, sometime in 1912, he traveled to a neighboring town around Dunukofia, today called Dunukofia. They were discussing at his friend's place. As they were discussing, in fact, the man he visited was a man called Chief Obinabo. He was a warrant chief, Chief Obinabo. of Ifitedum. They were discussing. As they were discussing, then they discovered that the missionary that was in Inteje had plans of leaving because he was not accepted where he was then in Inteje. Ojiako saw it as an opportunity to bring something good to his people. And he didn't waste time to move straight to the place, made arrangements, promised him whatever he wanted by promising him accommodation and a place where they will stay and situate their church and school. And he made it clear to him that what he wanted was education for his people, that he wanted his people to be knowledgeable like them. And so that was how it happened. The arrangements was made. They moved down to Adazinuhu. That was in 1912. And he harbored him in his compound. He harbored the missionaries led by Father Bubendorf. He harbored them for 12 years in his compound, in that small upstairs. He harbored them there. As a matter of fact, till date, his properties are still there. Both his bed and some of his personal effects of Father Bubendorf is still upstairs in that building. And so they stayed. He gave them a place, helped them to build the first church, the first school where they started. And then they started. Church started, school started. And then he gave our town the opportunity to be knowledgeable and to get evangelized. And so it brought exposure and knowledge to our people. In fact, our people sees it, and people around sees it as one of the most invaluable things he made to our people. It's so priceless because today it made Adazinuhu to be a town of academicians. We are not known for trade, we are known for academics. That's why you have so many professors in this town, Adazinuhu, and other towns around. He started with appealing to people to bring their children to school. Some didn't want to come because they will be asked to pay. He said he will pay. The first school fees paid by the first set of students, pupils in the school, was paid by Ojiako. He was footing the bills. And so that was how it happened. That is why till today, at a point, the church and the people decided to honor him by erecting one of the first primary schools and one of the first secondary schools around our area in his name. Up there, between our town and Agolo, very close to Wango, you will see Ojiako Memorial Primary School. It is there on the road. And then as you move down at Adaziani, you will see Ojiako Memorial Secondary School, in memoriam of what he did. And then it went on like that. And then the church continued to grow. With time, the church grew up to having about 107 stations. Now I think we'll call it parishes. Extended up to Okigwe and Olo districts. Very far. And so that made us who we are. And then his family life. Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne married 46 wives, among which my own grandmother was among them. His own grandmother was among them. His own mother, my uncle, was among them. As you can see, these are some of the wives. Some of the wives. I can point to you my own mother, my own grandmother. This is my grandmother. This is my father. That's the baby she's carrying. My own father.
This one?
Yes. This is his brother, the younger brother. His very beloved brother. He never played with. In fact, they never played with each other. They loved themselves so much. They were so inseparable till death. Because when Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne died, something happened. He was in his palace. He died in 1944 when he had pneumonia. And you know, then medication was not as it is now. So he died of pneumonia. And then after his death, that was some time in 1944. So after his death, immediately he died. Nnolime Ezenne was in his compound. Immediately he died. A dove flew to Nnolime Ezenne. Immediately he saw the dove. He started crying. He said that his brother had gone. He brought out his hand and the dove flew into his palm and he started crying. He said that the great man Igbo race had ever had has gone. And then he said that he will make the entire Igbo N'olu to know that his great brother, the great Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne, the great Ogalanyi Bione Buloche, the great Eze Bione Buloche had joined our ancestors. And so he said there will be no rain, that everybody must realize that he had left. And there was no rain for 4 years. Make your inquiries. In this our entire area, there was no rain for 4 good years. That was during the time, the interregnum period of the passage of a king. There was no rain until the last of Allah, the day of the last of Allah. When it was time for the last of Allah, he started going from town to town to tell them that on so day will be his brother's last of Allah. And every time he went to, they would tell him to go, that he's so hard-hearted, that they will not come unless they see rain, because he made it clear to everybody that he is the one that held the rain not to fall until his brother's last of Allah. And so, after going around to every other communities, he went back to his house. The night to the day, the eve to Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne, His Royal Majesty Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne's funeral, there was a heavy rain. It rained from that night till the next morning. There was so much flood. And once it was time for the funeral to start, the rain stopped and then funeral started. So many people came. Mba came. Towns from far and near attended, because he touched lives of people positively, not negatively. Today, we still go everywhere we want to go. We still go wherever we want to go with his name. We don't get scared of saying who we are, because he left a great legacy. A legacy of goodness, fairness, kindness. And so that is who we are. And then, during his reign, he had friends. You know, as a great man, he cannot operate as an island. He had friends who were equally great people that he worked with. Some, he married their children. Some kings as well, his fellow kings, he married their children too. And then, he was with them. It was people like Chief Onyamaneke was his friend. Irrespective of individual differences, Onyamaneke was one of his friends. Chief Raphael Anakuba Idigo was one of his friends. Idigo Naguleri was one of his friends. I am also still a friend of the family of the Idigos. Chief OSU of Newi is one of his friends. Chief Obina Bonifitedunu. These are great chiefs, warrant chiefs in those days. Chief Obiekezie Nadaziane. Chief Anekwe Icheke. If you go, that's one other great warrant chief Igbo people had, because Igbo Amari Yahawe. Ilona, when you get to Abagana, there's a place they call Ezi Icheke. It is named after that man, after that warrant chief, the one-time warrant chief of Abagana. He was a great man. Chief Icheke Nabagana. Those were his friends. Chief Umadi Nibuku and Chief Amobi Nogidi. Those are the friends he had. He also had very good friend, very close friend and associate, Chief Onyu Kenanimu. They were very close. And also very close with Orizu Nanewi, Chief Orizu. One of Orizu family. The Chief Orizu Nanewi of that same time in his own era. The sitting Chief Orizu Nanewi as well was his very good friend, one of his contemporaries. And Samuel Okosi, Obi Okosi, Obi of Onisha, of those days, in their own time. Those were the friends he had. And Umezuoke, Chief Umezuoke of Amici, those are the friends he had. Very good friends. So he was an achiever. He achieved so much. He did a lot for our people. So for a man today, people remember him. Whenever you talk of education in the southeast, you cannot talk about it without Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne. You cannot talk about Christianity, evangelism, trying to make people come out of barbaric way of life without talking about Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne. That was why this statue you see here in his palace, in this our palace here, when this palace was erected, when this statue was erected in this palace, Pope knew about it. Pope approved it. And he sent cardinals, including Cardinal Arinze. Cardinal Arinze and some other papals came from Rome and unveiled that statue there. And to our people, they felt it's still not even enough. So a few years ago, our people they came up with this idea that they want to mold him in the town center. In fact, they want to mold him in a roundabout that connects our town with other towns, Agolo and other towns. And so they went to Afo Center at the roundabout of our town. Afo, mind you, is a sacred land in Adazinuku. In those days, when the land in Igbo land used to be sacred, Afo used to be a sacred land. So they said that in Afo roundabout, that they will mold his statue there and mount it high. That whoever is passing, because since the erection of this road by our past governor, it has been a busy road, that people should pass. As people pass here, that they will see his statue, and then they will know that Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne cannot be forgotten. And for those who doesn't even know about him, they will see and ask, and they will be told his story of the good he did. That even good people don't die. That even when they passes on, their legacy remains and keeps their name alive. And so that was what prompted this. On that same day, on that very day, that was on a January 1st, 2023. That was the very day we unveiled this. After him, the town felt that a good man should not be forgotten. And despite that, as a staff, during his reign, by the time he was doing those things, and then the British government discovered that this man is an exceptional person. Despite the fact that they tried even to use him, but they couldn't. I must get into that as well. Because, Adazinuku as a town is a town of Catholics. Not dominantly Catholics. Catholics. Because our grandfather, His Royal Majesty Ogbuefi Ojiako Ezenne, advised the town that we should remain in one umbrella so we won't get divided. Not because he hates Anglican, not because he hates any other church. But by then, the truth is, the story we heard was that the first people that came to him was Anglican. He never said no to them because what he wanted was the knowledge he saw in them. He accepted, but he left and never came back. Until when this opportunity came of Father Bubendorf, he grabbed it as the wise man he was and brought him. And so by the time they started erecting schools and started doing all these things in Adazi, the Anglican felt they should come back. So when that missionary came, he told him, you came first. I did not refuse you coming. But you never came back. But rather, you went and built in Agolo, stayed there. And now, since you didn't come, these people have come and I have accepted them. And as long as they are here, I wouldn't want you two to come. After all, is it not the same thing you are bringing, they have brought? He said, yes. He said, there will be no need for two different names, two different entities coming in for one thing, that it will only bring division for his people, that he wants his people to remain with one mind. So they will always be one. There will always be that spirit of oneness in them. And so the Anglicans left. And so that made Adazi-Nnukwu dominantly Catholics. That's why you see so many Catholic parishes in Adazi-Nnukwu. No Anglican church, no other church.